Unleashing central influence, this pawn opens lines for swift development and sets a firm foundation for queenside pressure. Initiating development, the knight boldly claims central influence, preparing for pawn advances and potential tactical skirmishes. Securing the center and preparing for a dynamic pawn struggle, white asserts dominance. By stepping onto e6, black solidifies their center and prepares bishop development, though it does temporarily block their king's bishop. Developing the knight here neatly shores up the center and prepares for further queenside expansion, putting gentle pressure on black's setup. Challenging the center, black bravely contests central space and initiates an immediate pawn exchange. Fleshing out the queenside attack and preparing to challenge black's central structure adds pressure. Solidifying the center and preparing to castle, this natural development gently answers the bishop's pressure. Solidifying the center and preparing to castle, white gracefully develops another piece towards the kingside engagement. Securing the knight on d7 offers a solid defensive structure, anticipating potential pawn breaks and preparing for queenside development. Solidifying the center and preparing for a kingside pawn push, this move calmly consolidates white's position. Challenging the bishop's position immediately creates an imbalance, forcing white to clarify their intentions for the central pawn structure. Safeguarding the bishop's post, white maintains peace harmony and prepares for kingside castling, aiming for a solid positional advantage. Securing the king amidst the center's growing complexity, this maneuver prepares for active piece play on the queenside. Expanding territory on the queenside aims to restrict black's pieces and gain a crucial spatial advantage. Solidifying the queenside pawn structure addresses the immediate pressure, though it concedes some queenside space for black. Repositioning the bishop to d3 prepares to castle queenside and potentially launch an attack on the kingside with pawns. Challenging white's central pawn chain with a flank pawn thrust, aiming to open diagonals for the queen and bishop. Expanding on the queenside, white aims to cramp black's development and potentially create a passed pawn. Black boldly challenges white's queenside expansion, aiming to dismantle the pawn chain and gain counterplay on the open file. Bolstering the queenside pawn chain prevents any immediate black pawn advances, creating a stable defensive structure. Shattering the queenside pawn chain opens crucial lines for your pieces, aiming to exploit the resulting weaknesses. Opening the a-file now grants white immediate attacking potential on the queenside, forcing black to react swiftly. Reclaiming the rook immediately addresses the pawn structure imbalance, aiming to activate your pieces rather than passively defend. The queen's re-engagement on the file immediately aims to pressure black's queenside pawn structure and open avenues for further central control. Seeking active play, this knight ventures to the edge, hoping to exploit the queenside weaknesses. Unleashing the queen aggressively, white aims to disrupt black's queenside pawn structure and potentially isolate the knight. Sacrificing the knight offers a temporary respite from the queen's pressure and opens lines for counterplay. Opening the e-file grants attacking prospects, but be mindful of the undefended bishop on d3. Unlocking the queenside diagonal with this pawn break reconfigures the entire pawn structure. Opening the b-file, white liberates the rook and prepares to exploit black's slightly awkward pawn structure. Seeking to unlock the kingside and create attacking possibilities, this move initiates a crucial pawn struggle. Casting the king to safety clears the 8th rank, securing a vital defensive maneuver. Initiating a pawn storm on the queenside now aims to disrupt white's queenside pawn structure and open lines for counterplay. Unleashing a bold attack on the kingside, white aims to exploit the exposed black monarch by opening lines for the bishop. This captures the central pawn, opening up lines and creating tactical possibilities around white's king. The knight retreats to regroup, aiming to contest the central light squares and support potential pawn advances in the middle game. Mobilizing the knight to c4 offers a potent counterattack and seeks to disrupt white's queenside pawn structure. Striking at the queen's position forces a concession, though it offers black some breathing room in the center. Regaining material, black concedes the crucial d5 square's control, inviting white's pieces further up the board. Challenging black's queen offers a chance to simplify into a favorable pawn structure. Exploiting white's misplaced queen, black injects life into the center, aiming to disrupt white's pawn structure. Unlocking a dangerous passed pawn, white forces a pawn storm that might unravel black's position. Asserting central influence, black aims to activate this knight from its passive outpost. Unleashing the queen on a central invasion, this boldly contests the d-file's control and pressures black's vulnerable pawn structure. A bold attempt to activate the queen, though it risks isolating the knight. Reclaiming the pawn reopens the queen side and bolsters central presence. A bold attempt to reclaim queenside space, but it opens up lines for white's pieces to exploit. Consolidating the queen's pressure on the file, this repositions for a potential pawn storm or supports a deeper infiltration. This knight ventures into enemy territory, eyeing the crucial d3 square and preparing for potential infiltration. Securing the d-pawn and preparing for central pawn play provides a welcome respite from black's initiative. The black king now retreats, seeking sanctuary from the open diagonal, a small step towards safety amidst the queenside pressure. Asserting control over the central files, white aims to dismantle black's weakened pawn structure. Reactivating the rook from its passive posting, aiming to disrupt white's queenside pawns and gain counterplay. Fortifying the kingside now signals a defensive posture, possibly preparing for a more active central pawn push later. Activating the rook along the fifth rank creates immediate pressure on white's pawn structure and hints at future queenside activity. Consolidating pressure along the queenside and aiming to cramp black's position further. Activating the queen on the queenside creates immediate tactical threats and opens a vital diagonal for further play. A subtle maneuver, this knight repositioning seeks to disrupt black's queen's active placement and potentially exploit the now exposed kingside. Unleashing a knight to a surprising outpost, aiming to disrupt white's queenside control. Reclaiming the open file solidifies control and prepares for a decisive attack. Liberating the rook from its confined position unlocks crucial activity on the queenside, targeting white's pawn structure. Sharpening the attack, white repositions the queen to potentially support a kingside advance or control key diagonals. Unleashing the bishop now brings immediate pressure to white's pawn chain, forcing a reaction and potentially opening lines for black's queen. A desperate royal promenade now seeks to dislodge the entrenched knight and disrupt black's coordination before their pawns advance too far. King's escape route now looks precarious, inviting immediate pressure up the reopened light squares. A daring sacrifice to rip open the queenside and expose black's king to devastating checks. Targeting the weak a3 pawn creates active counterplay, forcing white to defend rather than advance their initiative. Unleashing a decisive discovered check, white forces the black king into a perilous square and dictates the next exchange. Seeking refuge on the side, the black king abandons the potentially dangerous central files, hoping to weather the storm of white's queenside pressure. Relocating the rook to the d-file reasserts pressure, preparing to exploit any potential weaknesses in black's otherwise solid pawn structure. Initiating a daring pawn advance, black aims to disrupt white's rook pressure and create counterplay on the queenside. Reclaiming the initiative, this knight repositions to solidify defense and potentially launch a counterattack on the weakened queenside. Unpinning the queen from the d-file now allows for potential counterplay and threatens the vulnerable knight. Seeking to activate the knight on the kingside, this move opens a diagonal for potential threats and challenges black's pawn structure. Consolidating the king's position on the safer light squares seems prudent. Unleashing a potent discovered attack, the white queen creates immediate chaos around the black monarch, forcing a critical decision. Exposing the king to further checks from the queen on this exposed rank is a dangerous gamble. Unleashing a decisive check, white forces a favorable exchange, aiming to simplify into a winning endgame. Relocating the king to g8 activates the kingside, preparing for a potential pawn push or counterplay should the opportunity arise. Clears the knight's path for an assault, eyeing weaknesses in black's setup.